Hi. Welcome to our 14th and final addition to our course in Echoes of Enlightenment on Baroque Literature. Here we handle a study with Immanuel Kant. Come along with us.
14th literary figure. From Königsberg, Prussia. A study with Immanuel Kant. April 22, 1724 to February 4, 1804. Let me recant. I mean recant. The difference between literature and that which is Baroque is that the latter is not simply writing things thought beautifully or intellectual, but singing what's thought so in the word. John 1:1 states, in the beginning was the word, but some think as word is law I. Either word is law or art is law for those associating the W with Cassiopeia or Llys Don. The Lions of Lombardy, Waldensians, whose vow of poverty leads companies of like ours today to explore a world outside shires, friends on foot, like football teams following the law of man fighting the forces of nature. The world was dangerous as Ragnarok with Western pro-Venezial maritime forces, soccer, checked and were checked by Eastern forces from Prague to Vicasino with Wiens, rugby, primate football teams. From Paninska Rosika the Moravian Thea River runs down to Austria, entering Ropsander Thea it comes to a tribute to the German Thea finally flowing back easterly to the Czech Republic. Checkmate, to the west was checkmate as in Matthew 3 Ksak in Hungary, Königsreich Ungarn, translating in actuality. Checkmate meant an eastern blitzkrieg westward, but how many more times Moravian from Rops? In 623 Rex Sclavorum, Samo, once but a Frankish merchant, was elected king of Slavs and unified them with a directory and victory over the Avarian Rops/robbers. With his strategic defense from the Frankish kingdom in 631, Americans de Delaware derive the modern Uncle Sam. If war or art precedes the word is a good question we may never know without faith. Since a second piece of Thorn in 1466, Immanuel Kant couldn't as backpacking, philologically, Brussels with B for ball and Russell from Russia we ask when, and from Kant was the word of Immanuel checkmate.
Some could while Immanuel Kant couldn't, but through Baroque literature critiquing pure reason. Brno put the West in check, subordinate to Prague only, there were Brunos in Lithuania too, then. With 64 squares of 8 files, columns AH, and 8 ranks, rows 1 to 8, the game of chess simulates war that was more realistic, then, than thought now. If we see the prefix I'm as not and the Lord in Matthew as Emmanuel, thus not Manuel is clear. Consequently, we ought consider Burgraves, not built with man's hands, Emmanuel, but Gauburgen not yet then thought enough. From the Königsberger Schluss in Kaliningrad to Staufenberk, St. Denis Monastery, Kinzburg, and Château du Haut Königsbourg in Alsace worlds differentiated Frankish from Swabian branches of Saxon ranks and files. The quartering of Nuremberg by King Konrad III was issued to the House of Raabs from Austria by way of the Thea. High school football we call it the crack. Well, because Switzerland is not a neutral country. It's the bear. Ask Will who established the Burgrave that Hohenzollern's house would inherit. As Hohenzollern split between Swabian, Catholic, and Franconian, Protestant, branches, the other two/sway black and white quarters on the shield are more complicated. In the third quarter were the Alemanni who were religiously tolerant. The fourth quarter were independent campaigns natively sovereign or born outside bricks and mortar claiming Fürstenberg, Freiburg and Kybourg, Roussillon, Reuss and Rass, Zuringen, Zwingli, Sway, and Dresdener Zwinger. Further, Baroque literature continues thus, Plauen, Plantagenet and Marching to war chanting Valhalla or bust, collectively considered pagan. Those seconds of Wildhaus in the Ibex on Einstein and St. Gallen's canton of Zurich, a Toggenburg/Toggle of European chess and warfare. But how many of Rousseau's native nobles have littered battlefields, peasant armies rose often.
Franchising the House of Raabs, Brussels with B for ball and Prussia with P for Paul from Russia we ask when? Back to der Dresdener Zwinger who vaguely described by others was the future foundation for future construction. The Teutonic Order founding Königsberg in 1255 would build Ordensburgen that suppressed native Prussians and supported attacks on the Polish Kingdom and Duchy of Lithuania. By 1525 Grand Master Albert of Prussia converted to Lutheranism where, formalized under the Treaty of Krakow, he became Duke of Prussia secularizing Prussian territory of the Livonian Order. The March of Zeitz encompassed a secundogeniture of the Saxon House of Wedin as its electorate. With the preservation of Sorbs realized and defenestration a reality, the Peace of Prague 30th of May 1635 neutralized Saxon aggressions in the 30 Years' War. We say that to remind readers that born in the wilderness those who couldn't read outnumbered those who could, whose native nobility personified the Ibex like König Kant. What of the Britgettins, the Third Order of St. Francis?
In Immanuel was the word in Swiss cantons Kantian theory checkmate. Toggenburg last s conflict lime tree, Linda, moderates and, radical, ended in the Peace of Europine, Hart. Catholic political hegemony did as well where Protestants were no longer only tolerated but equal. Otto I, German Emperor 936 to 973, corralled Slavs in Christian conversion to Gries and Gera under the Diocese of Zeit, and later Magdeburg, but when? Slavs under Zeitz of the Diocese from Russia we must ask which Henry, when? Der Deutsche Brache of Reuss Gries and Gera, Voigtland, Thuringian under Heinrich 15 of Reuss Lobenstein. Remember Ernestine and Albertine branches of Wedin, Thuringian Highlands Vots of Gera. House of Reuss Gries. Henry von Plauen Lamesteiner Fasselsicker resides in the townhouse tower.
After the chaos of total war, what could be known, ought be done and possibly be hoped, as skepticism renders most sons of harness makers, but with Immanuel was the word, and his father a humble Teutonic tannist from Klaipeda by way of Malbork, where once monopolizing the amber trade he was in Königsberg weary from war. Kant's Copernican revolution began in 1781 with the Critique of Pure Reason, where we realize infants know calculus a priori, but not words, yet, then. A posteriori, if whether or not willed, is motivated by questions that hadn't been answered, yet. Amongst others works, his contribution to Baroque literature also included his Critique of Practical Reason in 1788, in 1790 Critique of the Power of Judgment and Metaphysics of Morals in 1797. Explaining states in total war aren't states at all, he introduces morality as not only right but teleologically, war couldn't be its own end. Transcendentally ideal of Grunwald was checkmate as es ist gut, Brigitte.
That concludes all the information we will cover this course on Echoes of Enlightenment, Baroque Literature. A short transition period before the spring semester includes a study with Thomas Paine to get us all closer to common sense. We have really enjoyed this session and can't wait to do it over again in the spring as we march up to war against ignorance and illiteracy. Thank you for your time and consideration.